potential controversy around all this. I'd like to get through all that and go to what that means for mortgage and real estate. So I'd like to, if we can, just start from the top and let's just go right to the first article. And this is from Housingwire. So it is going to be housing related. Want to keep it that way. What happens to insurance premiums after the LA wildfires? So at this point, obviously, you all are already seeing what has happened with the LA wildfires. There is going to be a massive outcome from the insurance side when it comes to mortgage and real estate.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We were already facing headwinds last year with insurance policies and insurers leaving California. This is only destined to make it more difficult.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, right before the fires even started, 3 months prior to, a lot of people got turned down for their insurances. And some people just couldn't even afford those insurances. So they had to drop it. And now we're seeing the situation that we're in. This is just going to make it a lot even more so difficult for Californians to obtain insurance.
Unfortunately, this is one of those situations where we say it's going to get worse before it gets better. Yeah. I just don't see it another way, and that's not me trying to be pessimistic. It's like it just actually won't get better until it gets worse, and this is about as bad as it's going to get, and there will be backlash for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we could definitely anticipate that there's going to be higher premiums. I don't believe they're going to go lower just because of how everybody knew that this was just a matter of time. It wasn't a natural disaster. It's something that could have been better prepped for. So unfortunately, the insurance companies that do want to insure are going to, take that into account.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, everyone knows, insurance is really, it's all about risk. It's how much risk can you take, how much reward is there financially. And I understand that people who are watching this segment, they're also going to be in the comments saying, hey, listen, these companies make billions and billions of dollars. Well, that may also still be true, but their risk that they're insuring may not cover all the damage that they have based on their reserves for this. And you have a secondary issue, which is the insurance companies that insure the insurance companies. So the reinsurance companies are also going to have a problem on their hand because of the size of this devastation. So, quoted here in the article, you have a guy who's the founder and CEO of the agency in Los Angeles saying that he's got clients calling him frantically looking for leases, calling developers, asking about vacancies, see if we can figure out some sort of short-term lease or short-term rentals to house people. One of my number one comments from this whole thing that I wanted to bring up to you guys today is the displacement. You're talking about thousands of people. There's over 1,000 structures that have been completely destroyed. There's not burned wall or roofs kind of. It's gone. Yeah. It's 100% gone. That's thousands of people.
All your personal belongings. Imagine how much you put into it. I mean, I was just talking with Tanya. I would tell her, we have to have this fire/water safe that can protect you from not just the fire, but from water also, right? Because when they're coming out, turning those things off, a lot of times you get a fire protective safe, but then all the documents that you have in there are wet and they're no good. So
the timeliness of this is a little bit curious to me. Not curious. Sorry. There's something timely that happened in my life. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who works at a restoration, like a fire and flood restoration place. And that was one of the main topics we talked about was like, hey, the fire's one thing, but then when the fire department shows up and they completely wet your house, anything that's not burned still is going to get ruined. And the electronic stuff, documents, papers, photos, even furniture. I mean, if it's not lost from one thing, it's typically lost from the other. And the calculated cost of those things gets astronomical very quickly.
Yeah. One of the things that I saw that, I think is going to be an obstacle down the road is the permitting and the rebuilding phase. Because, I mean, we already know how long it takes for, the local municipalities to be able to dish out permits or even work on any permits. So on top of the permits that they're already probably backed up on, now they're going to get an influx of a whole bunch of other, new permits, new rebuilding plants. And that in itself is going to cause another bottleneck that down the line is going to cause a huge delay in anything getting built, from one year to another. So there's going to be a huge time that is going to, take time to just get all that in line before anything hits the ground and start putting bricks down.
This is truthfully a sad story.
Yeah, no, it's...
when Mauricio put it right here from the agency of just finding vacancies, short-term rentals, that in itself is going to be very difficult. And what people don't understand that us being in the real estate and the mortgage industry, it affects us all.
Yeah.
We're all affected. But yes, of course, it's the people that live there are way more affected.
Yeah.
Their lives are gone. Their memories are gone. There's some people that don't have insurance. Like, how are they going to even rebuild?
They won't. I mean, that's the saddest part about this is whether they were canceled or they chose to cancel it, whether their policy was non-renewed. I'll put it that way to be correct. Whether their policy was non-renewed or they chose not to pay their policy or renewed on their own, there's a complete loss. So unless you have the cash to rebuild and the time to wait, you could be displaced for years. Let's be honest. This is not a break-fix situation.
Yeah.
I broke my phone screen. It'll be ready for you to pick up tomorrow. Yeah. That's not it. We're talking about, like Brian's point, especially in these neighborhoods where like the entire neighborhood is demolished. That's going to take a long time. Not only do the cleanup, but then to do the prep work, to then do the rebuild work. And then I don't even know what percentage of homeowners are going to be able to go back to the place that they lived.
Yeah.
That's truly devastating.
Different.
And some of these people have lived I'll say their entire life, but 30 years, 40, I'm hearing all these stories, and people they've raised their kids there. They're hoping to have their grandkids eventually be there. And it's like, that's so just different. Vanished in a moment.
Let me tell you guys about this one where it says here on the article, California's wild season typically begins in June or July and runs through October. According to Western Fire Chiefs Association, the season can begin earlier and end later due to decrease in rainfall as a result of climate change. What do you guys think about that?
So there was a study done by some forest company that takes stats here in the California, and they mentioned that 95% of the wildfires here in California are actually caused by men. They're not a natural disaster. They're not something that occurs like a hurricane, like a tornado. They're man-made issues that happen due to faulty equipment, due to misappropriation of, funds that need to go to things that need to get fixed. So all that plays a part. And down the line, we knew that this was something that needed to get, looked at or have more, funding so that we could be prepared for a situation like this, because we know this happens every so often here in California.
Yeah.
Part of this whole story is the forest management issue.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just forest as like what you think about, like the pine trees and the hills up in Julian and all this, but actual like the management of territories. And now I have friends that live in the East County of San Diego. For those of you unfamiliar, there's a lot of like ranch land out there, rolling hills, dry brush, and it is definitely a problem. And you'll see goats on the hills eating shrub and eating vegetation down because you have to do some sort of perimeter around your property. Yeah. I have a friend. Steve, specifically, Steve, he comes from the home inspection industry, and he's retired many years now. But around his house, he has a multi-yard wide burn path that he's carved around his house, and he has rockscape and concrete nearest to the house specifically for prevention. Now, the thing is, will everyone do that? No. Is that advised? Well, yes. Does everyone like the way it looks? No. So there's these calculated risks people are going to take in that. Now, in the case of some of the LA burning, you see a lot of dense neighborhoods right there in the hills, and these hills are not maintained with that type of distance between the home and the agriculture.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is a single issue where you can just point, it's this or it's that. It's a number of things. And I think what I'm already seeing, though, is people are just trying to blame one thing or another. Yeah. Let's blame the politicians for this. Let's blame the climate for that. Let's blame the arsonists for that. And there's a combination of things at work.
Yeah.
You're blaming the fire chief for this and the mayor for that. And there's more than one failure here. Let's be super honest. There's way more than one failure that's happened in this situation.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of agree with you, but I disagree in some sense, right? But I mean, it's just a touchy subject. Just to see again over 1,000 families displaced is just not fun. 10 fatalities with this whole insurance thing. It's like, how do we move forward? How do we, prevent these things from happening? How do we build that wall, right, to prevent these things? How do we get water to these places? Because people couldn't do their jobs out there, right? There was no water.
Again,
you go to a fire hydrant, there's no water. So it's like these things were spoken about, my understanding, to our governor 4 years ago as a preventative, and nothing happened. Instead we did other things with the funds that we have.
It seems to me like this exact situation is the reason we talk about preventative measures. Like this is the situation that gets argued about in policy land of why we need to have money for this, money for that, procedures for this, and a protocol for that. Yeah. And this now being the outcome of that is exactly what was intended, whether you agree with the intention or not, or the way you get to the intention. This is exactly a situation that they were advocating they're trying to avoid. Yeah. And now it's upon us.
And I guess you can't, like you said, there's multiple, aspects that are, to blame for all this to happen, but you can't also blame 100% the insurance companies because they also pleaded their case that they know this is the issue that we're having. We can't reinsure because of the cost to rebuild. Yeah. So I understand also that the government over here on this side is trying to protect current policy holders because they don't want their insurance to get spiked up higher the next following time that they need to renew it. But at the same time, it's like, well, a business needs to profit in order for it to keep, doing business. And it feels like, hey, the insurance company had no choice but to be like, hey, well, we're at a loss. We can't just continue to lose. Well, like, I'd rather pull out.
Exactly. The way...
It's business. I mean,
yeah. I guess the other way, the best example that I heard was, from PBD was with he got canceled for his insurance for his yacht, right?
Yeah.
Because he's not a captain. If he was a captain, obviously an insurance companies want to insure a captain because you have experience, whereas he doesn't. So we don't want to insure you
because you're a liability.
Right. Exactly. So the way I think the companies also look at in California is as the government, right? Because we're not building the trenches because we're in an urban area.
Yeah.
Right. When you're in a rural, like your friend, he's rural. He knows what he's getting himself into. Yeah. So I want to safeguard my home. I'm going to put protection. Right. But when you're in an urban area, you rely on your government to make sure that they built these homes to fire standards or there's no fire brush.
The community is sustained enough to be able
knowing that, hey, climate will bring winds and stuff like that. There's things that are preventative. The way I'm looking at it is insurance companies understand that because they're going to go and look and see, where am I going to insure? Why would I want to insure there if the government or the city hasn't really protected anything?
It's like they're shooting themselves in the foot. They know that it's just a matter of time before I get
exactly. Maybe if the government put these protective measures,
it makes it more appealing for me to insure.
It'd be a lot different for an insurer,
And that's baked in, you think that's like baked into a big pot of stew of the problem. Because I know last year we talked about the pricing of insurance as well, and one of the issues is that they're chasing the replacement costs. Yeah. So the premiums that the premium increases they're allowed to put upon a policyholder are lower than the rate of the cost of labor and replacement materials to rebuild the thing they're insuring.
Yeah.
And so then you have the insurance commissioner as part of that too. Again, that's what I'm saying. It's all baked in because it's you go down one thought path and there's 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 different things you're going to bump into as problematic in the problem, whether you go this way, to the right, down the center, above or below. No matter which way you argue this thing, there's problems in a variety of variables that are going to have to be addressed because of this. There's no way out of getting through this without addressing these materially in black and white.
And it's not like these houses are in communities where houses are like $200,000 to $400,000. They're multi-million-dollar houses. Yeah. And like the cheapest one is probably around $1 million.
Well, they were saying the average was like 2.7
million. I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, and that's like, on the low end. So I mean, you're talking about multi-million losses here.
Yeah. So there's I think what we should expect and what people watching this should expect is that, number one, if you are still insured and you have fire protection for your house, review your policy. So I wrote down some takeaways here. So to give some people some like guidance or some advice. So number one, review your current policy that you have right now and see what kind of coverage and replacement coverage you have. Number two, if you find that you're lacking any of those things, call your agent right away. Tell them, hey, I reviewed my policy, explain this to me, or is there a gap here? It sounds like there is, looks like there is. Ask good questions, and then make qualified choices, okay? Yeah. This seems very elementary. I understand. Yeah. I am going to that granular level because sometimes it's just a matter of stopping your life long enough to look at what you actually have and then call out what's missing, and then plug it in and fix it.
Yeah, no, great advice.
And even, I mean, here for San Diego, we're not too far away from Los Angeles. We ourselves have experienced plenty of fires in this area, so don't wait until the fire's in your backyard to then start, making a move. It's right now to prepare into June, July, when our fire seasons are around the corner. Make that move right now, or take that time to fix that.
I want to make sure that I let everybody know, in case you don't know, in the zip code we're sitting in, this zip code as a zip code is next to agriculture and has been canceled by some insurance carriers because they go, oh, you're within 5 miles of the rolling hills. Not 100 yards, not 100 feet, like 5 miles. And so entire carriers have lifted themselves out of certain zip codes specifically because of that.
Yeah, 100%.
No, thank you, Andy, for giving that great advice. I mean, again, it's just advice is prepare yourself, right? Prepare yourself with having even a safe to protect your birth certificate. Very important documents there. The other thing is we all have some jewelry. We have our wedding rings that sometimes we don't wear, right? I don't have mine, but it's there. So insure those things. Now is the time to just not learn through going through the experience, but just learn by going through it, you know? And so put yourself there and just imagine, again, devastating to see everything that's going on. I just went in there and Googled just current images, and I'm telling you, it is not a pretty sight.
From like one day to another. It's
That's
ridiculous.
it.
Like just...
Yeah, so great advice. I think we should end it there, is just be prepared. And thank you, Andy, for sharing that. That's actually really good information. Talk to your insurance company right away.
Yeah, and just keep your eyes open for what this changes in the commercial space as well as residential space, and insurance connected to both, because there are businesses that were lost as well as homes. And there's going to be broad changes that are not just for Los Angeles County, but probably California at large. So we're going to, unfortunately, probably have to come back to this one again at whatever point it's relevant. But I don't think that this story is over. It's just over. It's just over for us today.
And again, our prayers go to you guys.